Welcome to another Book Review Wednesday. We are at the end, or at least approaching the end of this series. We are in the 12th installment of a series of unfortunate events. This one in particular, the 12th book, is called and I am going to try to pronounce this as best as I can, the Penultimate Peril, or Peril. I think that's how you pronounce it, but that's the best I could stomach, at least. But basically, this is really the kind of build up to the ultimate kind of climax of the series. So basically, this book starts where the 11th book left off. If you haven't seen my previous video where I discussed the 11th book, I suggest you check that out before you watch this video so you're not confused. So anyways, basically within this book, we see the Baudelaires stumble upon a hotel, and you will see how they do so if you choose to read this book. And basically, they are assigned sort of to work at the hotel, and basically their mission is this: they have to figure out whether or not there is going to be people from the organization called the FD, and if you see my previous videos, you will understand what the VFD is, or at least you'll understand how the VFD comes to play within this series. But basically, the VFD comes in and is supposed to come and to this hotel and host a meeting, and the Baudelaire's job is to make sure that in case something goes awry, they sort of warn the members that something bad is going to happen. The interesting thing about this book is they encounter previous villains that they've come across within all of the other books. And also on top of that, we see the main villain, Count Olaf, come into play and try to mess things up for them, and how things eventually sort of go downhill. And they also have the goal of finding the sugar bowl, which was prominent in some of the previous books that I've mentioned. In particular, the Grim Grotto, I believe it is called. I'm starting to lose track of the names of all of these books because there's so many. But basically, the sugar bowl is supposed to be some sort of precious artifact, or something that's very valuable to this VFD organization that the Baudelaires are trying to protect, and also the enemies want the sugar bowl as well. And you'll see how certain things are sort of revealed that will sort of explain a little bit of what I am expressing as far as the plot is concerned in regards to sort of the sugar bowl's significance and how the Baudelaires try to get a hold of it. And also they are supposed to find this JS person, or find the identity of this particular person as well, and that's part of their mission too, and you will see how and why that is if you choose to read this 12th installment. I think, though, that's really ultimately all I can say about this particular book without giving too much away, but I will tell you that it really does end on a very highly climactic note, because it really does establish sort of a sense of mystery, but then also a sense of what's going to happen next. This book really does build it to that extent, because we are basically sort of returning to where we kind of started off, with the main villain sort of taking control of the children, and you're seeing the children sort of fighting against him, and you sort of see how they're going to kind of clash within the final book, and that's going to somehow be a huge plot element that really kind of ties things together, but maybe leaves things somewhat open to interpretation. So really that's I think really ultimately all I can say about this book without really giving too much away. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, they have certain goals and they try to accomplish those goals, and in doing so, there's a lot of mishaps, and this ultimately leads to sort of a final kind of showdown, so to speak, that kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger, because we see the main villain and the protagonists kind of together. And that's really how you sort of want a series to sort of at least end, because I think what this series did a good job of doing is it did a good job of establishing things in the various books, and then sort of building things up and building all this tension and all these different things revealing itself. And this one sort of builds up to a final peak, and then the last book is supposed to provide you a sense of closure and conclusion that leaves things open, I think, to interpretation, but also sums things up and reveals things that we probably weren't aware of, and kind of gives a sense of understanding of the sort of Baudelaire story and how they came to these kinds of circumstances that ended up happening throughout all of the other books. So that's really what the focus, I think, was a lot for this series, to kind of build things up to this point. And we'll ultimately see what happens within the last installment, which I'll be talking about next week. But I would highly recommend this book if you have not read it. Some people might say that it is a little bit, for like middle school level, but at the same time, I still think, regardless of how old you are, you can still, I think, find some enjoyment out of this kind of a story. If you enjoy the kind of adventure, the mystery, and all that, I think there is something to enjoy out of this series, and I think this book does a good job of reaching to that climactic point, which you would expect out of a series such as this. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, we'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.